The 2024 election season is officially heating up, and Biden and Trump are outlining their economic agendas for the coming decade. So Biden went over to Scranton, Pennsylvania, his hometown, and he outlined the economic differences between him and the former president. He's specifically highlighting the differences in where Biden and where he came from and where Trump came from. He's trying to frame it as a fight between Main Street and Park Avenue.
Yes.
Which is pretty classic Biden.
Yep.
Also, the thing from him being from Scranton is all kind of funny because he didn't live there for that long, and then he moved to Delaware, and then he's been in the Senate since he was 29. It's very, very difficult to frame him as like the working man.
Yes,
but
it is.
It is. But he's going to try his darnest to make it so. And he outlined his tax program and really differentiated and showed the difference between his approach to taxation and Trump's approach to taxation. And I think it's important that we go in and we really dig deep into what he's calling for and the differences in what his economic plan versus Trump's is. So Biden directly attacks Trump on extending the Trump tax cuts for people making over $400,000. Mm-hmm. So one of the big fights in 2025 is going to be the reauthorization of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, because all of the personal income taxes in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act were not permanent. The corporate tax cuts, those were permanent. But the personal income tax cuts, they were not. Now, that goes for the middle class, the working class, the poor, and the rich. All of those taxes need to be reauthorized. Now, what the Republicans are floating is that they're going to reauthorize all of them, and they're going to reauthorize all of the tax cuts.
Yes.
The Biden administration is saying that they will not reauthorize all of them. If you're making over $400,000, your tax cuts will go away, but everyone below the $400,000 will stay with the same tax rates that are passed with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Yes.
He makes it very clear. He says trickle-down economics failed the middle class. It failed America. And then he said Donald Trump embodies that failure. Badass line. Keep that messaging going. I think that's great. Then he goes in to a lot of his direct tax change proposals. And I think this is really important because the minutia of tax law is boring and it's lame, but it's imperative to understand the priorities of a government. And it's also important to show that the government's going to have the resources to take care of the things that we want to change.
Yeah.
Right?
If you care about a fairly expansive social welfare program for a good safety net, if you care about the deficit and the debt, then you have to talk about taxes.
Absolutely. So he wants to create a 25% minimum tax on all the income of the wealthiest 0.01%. Not 1%, not 0.1%, 0.01% of Americans.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, outrageous.
How could he?
How dare he attack this discrete minority? This is the only minorities Republicans care about. No, I'm just kidding. That's too mean. What's great about this tax, from my perspective, is it's not only taxing income, but it's also including appreciated assets, which are not currently taxed. So this is the creation of basically a wealth tax.
Yes.
That's what this is. And listen, people hear wealth tax and they get scared, but it's really important to remember that as a middle or working class person, you pay wealth taxes every single year. Every time you pay property taxes to your local government, you're paying the appreciation of your asset. Even though you didn't sell your house that year, you didn't make any money off your house that year, but because you own that asset, you're paying taxes on it. Same thing with your excise tax on your car.
Yep.
All we're saying is that all the stock portfolios that are owned by all the Elon Musk's, all the Elon Musk types, Jesus Christ, God damn it.
All the Elon Muskets.
They need to pay those types of taxes too. Yeah. And that's what he's trying to change. All this tax would only hit people who are worth more than $100 million. So I don't care.
Again, absurd.
Yeah, absurd.
How can we allow that to happen?
And it is so absurd that we have allowed that. See, this is what I'm talking about, priorities, guys. This is the priority, okay? Jesus Christ, if you care about people who make more than $100 million a year, you're a chump. Anyway... Okay, Biden also proposes taxing capital gains as the same rates as wages for income over $1 million a year.
Wow.
This is really great because literally last week we put out a video outlining the differences in capital gains rates and personal income tax rates through your regular W-2 or 1099 tax filing.
Yep.
Capital gains, he's coming after that.
That's crazy.
If you're making a lot of money through capital gains, he's coming down on you. Also, he wants to increase the net investment income rate on earned and unearned income above $400,000. That's a lot of words, and I don't know what a lot of them mean. But the main thing here, the main thing that we got to understand is that there's currently a tax rate for certain investment income that's taxed at 3.8%. He's taking that from 3.8% and moving it up to 5%. And with that 1.2% increase in that tax, he will be able to save the Medicare Hospital Trust Fund.
Wow.
That's what that money goes to.
Yeah.
All of the money raised there is going into the Medicare Hospital Trust Fund to keep that afloat because it's currently going in the red, and we need to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about with good government. This is what I'm talking about with priorities, right? This is a very, very small increase on taxes on people who are the most fortunate among us to literally save the Medicare Hospital Trust Fund.
Yeah.
The Medicare Hospital Trust Fund. But so that's all like personal income taxes. Now let's go into the corporate tax changes that he's making because he's doing a lot, or at least he's proposing a lot. Mm-hmm. He wants to increase the corporate tax rate from 28%. That's up from 21%. That's popular among moderate Democrats as well as liberal Democrats. Joe Manchin was even in support of a 28% corporate tax at one point. So this will be fairly easy to pass in a Democrat Senate and a Democrat Congress if it's filibuster proof.
Yeah.
When I say filibuster proof, I don't mean over 60. I mean that Democrats have the balls to overdo the filibuster.
Okay.
Or pass it through a reconciliation process. He also wants to raise the minimum corporate tax rate on billionaire corporations to 21%. For the first time in America, after the Inflation Reduction Act, we had a minimum corporate tax rate on corporations of 15%. Mm-hmm. Well, we made that minimum corporate tax rate. He wants to jump it up to 21%. He won't. Yeah,
sorry, just a tangent. We are going to need to get into the data about the corporate taxes collected with this minimum.
Yeah.
Because tax day just passed.
Yeah.
And this was the first year, 2023, that it was going to be live.
Yeah.
Very curious to see how that played out.
Yeah. We should talk about that next week for sure. We'll look into that next week. He's reducing incentives for multinational businesses to book profits in low tax jurisdictions, which is great because we talk about the race to the bottom all the time, which is always a problem. He wants to raise the tax on their corporate foreign earnings to 21%, up from 10.5%. Highly in support of that. And then this is another fantastic one that I love. This means that the Biden administration is listening to its base. It's listening to the economists who are pushing for this and who are clamoring that this is a problem. He wants to quadruple the tax on companies that buy back their own stock instead of investing in workers or lowering prices. So the Inflation Reduction Act not only did it implement a corporate minimum tax for the first time, it also implemented a tax on stock buybacks for the first time. If I think it was like 0.25% or maybe it was 1% corporate tax. I think it was 1%.
That's all.
I think it was 1%. So he wants to bump it up to 4%.
Okay.
Honestly, it was very much like get the law on the books so it exists and then we'll fix it later.
I mean, that's how politics works.
That's how it works.
You go in increments.
So this is... Oh, did you want to say something?
Oh, I just love that we're de-incentivizing the financial manipulation, right?
Yeah.
This is the best thing that we could be taxing.
The financialization of our corporate structure has been the death knell of American manufacturing. I mean, it's... that
you love your absolutes.
Well, it's the truth.
You love your hyperbole.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
When all these companies could be taking all these record profits and pumping it into hardcore machinery, into workforce, into expanding, it's not. It's going right into the market to make the bankers money. I mean, it makes me money. I have a 401k account. It makes me money too.
Yeah,
but
totally. Yeah, but it's not widgets and services being produced.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's all on paper money.
I think. Do you wonder at all? Like, is it happening because we've hit somewhat of a ceiling as far as like easy gains in sales and in profit, right? And so it's just like now it's the amount of innovation that it takes to get to these next incremental gains and actually sell more expensive things to people.
Yes.
It's way harder than just buying back your stock.
No, it's way harder. I mean, if a company's role is to increase the profits of their shareholders, you buy back your own stock. There's no better way to make money.
Yeah.
If that's the incentive structure you want to build. But keep in mind, buying your own corporate stock used to be illegal.
Oh, really?
It used to be illegal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The Reagan administration made it legal.
That would be an interesting idea to talk about.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, but you think about, I almost think about like Apple. I feel like it's the perfect example where they are just doing the most incremental gains every year. Like
Yeah.
every year they just have to make the camera a little bit better. They have to
Right,
change
right,
the OS a little bit. And they are raking in tens of billions, 100 billion a year.
Yeah.
Like it's almost impossible to, or they could just pay their people even better, I guess. But,
Right. So that's the other thing, right? The real counter argument to the whole stock buyback thing, which is this is a huge tangent, but I think it's important. It's like, is there even a better place for them to put the money?
Yeah.
Is there a better place to put the money?
Mm-hmm.
I think there is. I think that there was a big important hearing with pharmaceutical industry executives back in 2019, I think, and Katie Porter was pulling out her whiteboard and taking them to town, and she was talking about the difference in money going towards research and development of new drugs versus corporate stock buybacks, and so that's one of the areas where it's like the role of a pharmaceutical company isn't to be an investment machine.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be to make new drugs.
Yeah.
And to increase the human experience through that way.
Totally.
And so when like Walmart and Apple and all these tech companies are doing all this stuff, they shouldn't be financializing themselves and just becoming their own, almost like their own hedge fund.
Yeah.
They should really be working on expanding their business. That's what's supposed to be their role.
Yes.
And we should be incentivizing that, because at the end of the day, it's not going to increase our GDP to just see the numbers in our checkbooks go up. That's not really what does it.
No, that's correct.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
it's
also
just the easiest way.
It's just the easiest way to get the shareholders' money.
Yes,
If the company, and then if the money goes back to the workers, that's actually great too, because then the workers spend that money.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but then you would still have the problem of it not being parlayed into innovation and development.
right. It would only do that if they increase demand for stuff, and then the increased demand for things then encourages the companies to invest the money.
Yes.
But that's a whole other topic. Point is, the Biden administration tax policy, economic policy is vastly different from the Trump policy. And I want to go into what he is talking about so heavily. So Trump is publicly running on extending his tax cuts wholly for the people making over $400,000, and is framing Biden's policy as colossal tax hikes, the likes of which no one has ever seen. That is obviously a lie.
Yeah.
This is obviously a flat out lie. FDR passed this thing called the Wealth Tax Act in 1935. It increased the top income tax rate from 63% on incomes over $1 million to 75% on incomes over $5 million.
Love that.
Love that. So it's obviously not the highest it's ever seen.
Did you see the Times came out with an analysis of how Trump lies?
No, I haven't.
It was like they were going in depth on his methodology, and one of the examples is just like it's massive over exaggeration, right?
Yeah.
Like colossal tax hikes, the likes of which no one has ever seen before. We have seen it before, and they aren't colossal, and they are only on people over $400,000.
Exactly. And not only that, okay, FDR also passed the Social Security Act, which made payroll taxes for the first time.
Yeah.
It raised like $1 billion in revenue its first year. Okay, it's like the largest tax increase ever on working people ever.
Yeah.
So please, it's not the largest ever. So that's a whole thing. But Trump is also not just talking about like excuse me, national taxes and personal income taxes and personal corporate taxes. He's really going heavy on the tariffs. But as we'll talk about in a second, so is Joe Biden. But I want to talk about Trump's philosophy on tariffs first.
And I just really quickly want to say tariffs, if you don't know,
please.
Tariffs are taxes levied on importers for the goods they import from specific countries, or they can be tariffs on goods from all countries. These are paid by the domestic companies that are importing them, not by the foreign companies that are exporting them to us.
Yes. Thank you. It is paid by the American person buying the thing from overseas.
Yes.
Okay. So Trump has floated a 10% across the board tariff on all imports, a 60% tariff on imports from China, and a 100% tariff on foreign cars, including from Mexico. Listen, that's not serious, right? 100% tariff on foreign cars coming from Mexico. Didn't he just pass NAFTA 2.0? Is he ripping up NAFTA 2.0 already?
That's crazy.
And 60% tariff on stuff coming from China? What, do you not want the Americans to be able to consume anything from China at all? Is the point to totally insulate the entire Chinese manufacturing sector from the United States? Listen, that's crazy. Okay, we're not there yet. That's not possible. That means the standard of living of the middle and working class person goes down. We want to talk about inflation being a problem. I can't think of a worse way of inflating the prices for everybody than putting a 60% tariff on Chinese imports.
Yeah, well, it's going to inflate prices, but also it's not even going to be that effective because Chinese goods are just going to be shipped elsewhere, and then they're going to be rerouted to America, which we've already seen happen anytime we do put tariffs on China. So it's not only bad policy in theory, it's also going to be ineffective in practice.
Dumb in practice.
Yeah.
But now, economists are suggesting that this type of this is coming from the Wall Street. No, I'm sorry. This is coming from Moody's. They've ran through the projections of what Trump's tariffs could do, and Moody's is suggesting that there would be 675,000 jobs lost, a wipeout of 0.6 percentage points from the U.S. GDP, and boost the unemployment rate by 0.4%. That's what Moody's is suggesting this type of tariff policy would do.
Really?
And inflation would increase by 0.7% after the implementation of the tariffs.
Oh.
So that's what Moody's is suggesting that this tariff could do if actually passed.
I'm surprised it would boost unemployment by that much, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it would increase demand, but maybe the answer is I guess the 10% across the board tariffs.
That's really harsh.
That is harsh, but that's also where I think that employment might be propped up.
Sure,
right?
Sure,
if
yeah.
everything from every country is made that much more expensive.
Okay.
Really, there is going to be an incentive for more. But for the massive tariffs just on China, I'm thinking, they're just going to be made somewhere else, Malaysia or the Philippines or Vietnam or everything else is going to come from some other country with way cheaper labor.
I'm thinking about this also as just like all the input problems that goes in here. And so like all these tariffs that get applied to input goods that businesses need to make their final products.
Yeah.
It just makes the cost of doing business that much more expensive at the end of the day.
Yes.
And so that's the Trump, that's the two big Trump things. Expanding the tax cuts for people making over $400,000.
And everyone else.
And everyone else. And everyone else is very important.
Yeah.
And putting in blanket tariffs across the board. Now here's the problem. Joe Biden today, a couple hours before we recorded this video,
yes,
has also suggested that he wants to put tariffs on foreign imports.
Yeah. So news came out today about tariffs, two specific types of tariffs. One is on, did I just lose the article I wanted? One is on solar panels or solar technology. There was a complaint by a Korean company that brought up it was a complaint to the U.S. trade representative about how Chinese solar technology was being made on basically unfair playing ground because it was massively subsidized, and this Korean company that's operating in the U.S. can't compete with the Chinese imports. So just today, Reuters comes out with an article and says the Biden administration is going to consider basically closing loopholes that had been in these tariffs to allow this technology to come into the U.S. This is a huge deal for many reasons, as far as climate change and our transition to the green energy economy. This is really tough because China dominates solar manufacturing right now, and the U.S. has plans for build out in domestically for manufacturing, but it's not really there, and it's going to be way more expensive in the near term to get all of these installed. So the solar industry is kind of completely split between domestic manufacturers who are going to like this and domestic installers who are going to hate this. But then there's also economically, it remains to be seen whether those solar installers are going to be able to survive.
Yeah.
In the meantime.
Because the American manufacturing of these solar cells it's not caught up yet.
No, a lot of these facilities haven't quite been built either. So we're just not there with our capacity. Of course, this will spur a ton more investment in that manufacturing, and they'll be trying to get it up quickly. But in this, basically, I guess we're going to want to see how much of a grace period do they get. Because right now it's going to make things tougher.
It needs to be properly managed, otherwise it's not going to go well. We've been pretty consistent on the show being anti-tariff, And so when Biden comes out and puts a tariff on there, we're going to hold it up to just as much scrutiny as a Trump tariff.
Oh yeah.
And because one of the things about the show is that we're trying not to be absolute hooligans here.
Yes.
We need to be honest with ourselves. I
Yes.
saw a very, very annoying post from, I think it was a columnist at the Washington Post. She wrote a scathing attack against the Trump tariff proposal.
Okay.
And then she wrote something supporting Biden's tariffs on steel that he's proposing today, which we were about to talk about.
Yes.
And so it's like, no. Pick it. Pick your policy position and stick with it.
Yeah.
Just because your team chooses to do it doesn't mean you get to uproot your whole philosophy and change your column.
Exactly. It makes you think, oh, they don't actually have a philosophy.
Yeah.
They're just looking for the argument that works.
Exactly.
Yeah. So steel is the other thing where Biden went to Pittsburgh earlier today, and he said that he was looking at tripling steel tariffs from China. So he's there, and he's in the heart of steel country, right? He just got the endorsement from the United Steelworkers. Last week, we talked about how he has come out against Nippon Steel's acquisition of U.S. Steel, which is wildly popular with domestic steelworkers. And so now he said that he's calling on U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai to consider tripling the existing 7.5% rate on Chinese steel and aluminum. He said that, what did he say? Goodness. He said China is not competing, they're cheating. He said they're cheating, and we're seeing the damage here in America. Steel, I think, is a worse thing to have tariffs on than even solar.
Dude, steel, you can find videos from like episode 5 of this show of me saying tariffs are really bad, but they're really bad on steel.
Yeah.
I literally said that.
Yes.
And now here we go. We got Joe Biden putting for steel tariffs.
Yeah.
Fucking kill me.
So why is he doing this?
You're right.
Politics.
It's all politics.
Right.
Populism at its worst, folks.
Yeah. I mean, Pennsylvania, Ohio, even this is going to have ripple effects, I think, around Michigan, where steel is a big component of the cars that they make. They're swing states. He needs these to win the election. I'm hoping, as I said with the Nippon deal, that it's only politics.
That it's just him basically lying.
It's posturing. Yes, yeah. I mean, all we're saying is he's called on Catherine Tai to consider tripling.
Right. So I guess he wouldn't be lying about anything. He's just misleading.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Which if it works, if it's good politics, then I am hopeful that it has the desired effect.
Yeah, like I hope he says this stuff, but when he wins election, he does not go through with trying to implement these tariffs.
Exactly. Because there have been studies done on because Trump started the steel tariffs on China. Mm-hmm. And the studies say that he did probably protect jobs. There might have been 1,000 or more steel jobs created because of the steel tariffs in the U.S. Mm-hmm. But steel is used for manufacturing so many other things. And that's where these jobs are going to be lost, where the price of steel as an input goes up. There was also steel tariffs were implemented. I found another article in 2002.
Okay.
And there's evidence that the producer price index, the PPI rather than the CPI, went in the first like 9 months or 12 months that it was implemented. It went up like 20%. Price of steel. So we're going to see, I think, similar effects if we get a policy like this.
Well, if you want to see a booming construction industry, can't think of a worse way to stop that than to say, hey, we're going to increase your construction cost by 20% in the short term.
Yeah.
You know?
Not to mention, we've talked about how steel is an input for almost
transformers.
Yeah, all of the technology that we need for the green transition.
Yep. 88% of electrical steel is produced outside of this country.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? Tripling the cost of that. What are we doing? What are we doing there?
Yeah, we shouldn't be doing that.
No, if we want more steel production, subsidize steel production in the United States. If you want more steel production, invest in steel production.
Yeah.
Don't cause this like awful short-term damage for maybe possibly getting more investment down the road in the future.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Give them a carrot, not
Give
the
them
stick.
a carrot, not a stick. Absolutely. So this is the big difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration's economic policies. There are some similarities with these tariff talks, but
yes,
it really comes down to Biden is going to tax the wealthy, the corporations, and Donald Trump will not. That's it.
I do want to point out, bigger picture, these aren't that different. These economic policies, Biden does want to raise taxes on the rich, but the taxes for everyone making under $400,000
the exact same.
are going to stay the exact same. The corporate taxes are a big difference. Trump does not want a minimum corporate tax. Trump does not want to increase the corporate tax rate. But like, I don't know. And they both want tariffs.
And they both want tariffs.
They're both populist, kind of isolationists.
It's
as
actually
far as that.
kind of strange because
It's fairly similar.
it's actually fairly similar.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of things that differentiate Trump and Biden. But when we zoom out and you squint, it's kind of hard to see the differences.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think that's important. Like, it's
important to
important to point
remember
out because it makes you think about what are the things that do really differentiate them.
Yeah. And there are plenty. And we recommend you go watch our video where we break down the entire Biden budget of 2025 proposal, where he outlines a lot of differences about paid family leave, about a lot of other things that are important differences. But at the end of the day, when your party is getting differentiated with support for paid family leave and not, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just different.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the populist wave has forced them closer.
I agree.
Together.
I
right?
agree.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching this episode of Out of Order.
Crazy that you made it to the end.
If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe on YouTube and check us out on Patreon.
Yep. Link is in the description of our YouTube channel, and we're super poor, so we could use any support you can give.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.